Si hablamos de Betterman, ¿hablamos de una de las mejores películas del año? Es emotiva y oscura por igual, y súper disruptiva porque el protagonista es un mono. Si de Robbie Williams dependía, pudo haber sido hasta un león. Hablé con Jono Davis, el actor que se puso el traje de captura de movimiento y se puso en los zapatos de su ídolo para ser Betterman. Con él hablamos de lo difícil que fue coordinar los saltos en el pogo stick para ser rock DJ, hablamos del corazón de la película y también de por qué era un mono. Mi teoría se apoya en una línea del final de la película en donde Robbie Williams dice que se hizo muy famoso a los 15 años y como que quedó atrapado en esa edad, que no pudo seguir evolucionando. La teoría de Jono va en línea con lo que contó Michael Gracie, el director, y acá me explicó por qué.
We now return to Mira Akian and Contre with our latest interview.
I read that it was going to be like a lion. Is that correct?
That was when Michael said to Rob, like, what do you think your spirit animal is? And Rob said, I'm a lion. I believe I'm strong. And Michael was like, sure? And Rob was like, no, I'm a monkey. He was like, yeah, you're a monkey. You're a monkey, my friend. Yeah.
This is my story, but I'm not going to tell it in an ordinary way because I don't see myself how others see me.
How much was he involved in this film, like on the everyday basis?
On the everyday basis, not so much. The script is very much based around stories that he told Michael Gracie, our director. I don't know if you know, but Michael and Robbie met through The Greatest Showman.
Mm-hmm.
So basically Hugh Jackman used to reference Robbie all the time as a brilliant showman. And so Michael kind of got to know him through there. And when Michael met Robbie, he realized what a great storyteller he was, but also what great stories he had to tell. And so whenever Michael would meet Robbie in LA, they'd go in a studio and he would just get Rob just to tell him stories about his life. And through there, that's how the script kind of came together. And then Rob was very generous and put on some shows for us in Australia, which is where we shot the majority of the film, which meant that we could shoot in front of real crowds, rather than CGI crowds. And so he was there for the first few weeks. And obviously he did a lot of the singing as well. But I think the great thing about Rob is that he kind of did, right, I've done my part and now it's time to do your part, to me and to Michael. And he kind of put his faith in us to kind of go and tell his story in this brilliantly fantastical way.
For the next 2 hours, your ass is mine!
I had to do a lot of research on what it is to be Robbie, how he moves, how he talks, how he feels. And there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that you can watch, him doing performances, him doing interviews. And that was really useful. But a good part of our story is away from the camera, right? It's when he's at home with his loved ones. And I needed to meet that version. And thankfully, Rob was there. And he was just very open. And he told me about his struggles, through his Take That era, through his solo career. He told me about who he was close to, what he loved, what he didn't like, what made him feel uncomfortable. And that was just really useful things for me to build upon in making my version of Robbie Williams. We spoke about our families, and how important they are to us. So anything that I could find within him that I connected in myself was just really useful, because then you're able to bridge the gap and put yourself in the performance as well as Robbie and as well as the chimpanzee. There's a lot of layers to it. But my very first meeting was my dress rehearsal for My Way, the big finale. It was the first thing we shot. And I'd just been put in the motion capture suit, which is not flattering at all. It's tight where you don't want it to be, and it's saggy in the places that you don't want it to be saggy. And I've got when you're doing motion capture, performance capture, you often have a camera attached to your head, to your helmet. And I was just getting used to that, the weight of it, having it in my eye line. And I sing live in the film. Even though it's not my singing voice they use, you kind of need it to help with the emotion. And, I think the audience would be able to tell if this chimpanzee is just mouthing the words. You need to feel that person's singing. So I sang it live, and Robbie came in just as I was about to start singing for the first time. And I'm by no means a professional singer. And he walks in, with the swag that he has, and sat himself down the front row and kind of went, go on then, let's see what you're made of. And I absolutely shit myself. I was a big Robbie fan growing up. And not only that, it's rare when people play, when they do these biopics, it's rare that the person's still alive, and so to actually have the person you're playing sat in front of you, it was pretty nerve-wracking, but he was great.
Don't want to be a nobody.
Contemplate my fate. You're enough.
What did he tell you after he saw you that? Because that was like maybe a test. We can say that. So
Yeah.
What were his like maybe notes?
Well, he just sort of said, you've got the job, mate. Like, we love you. You don't have to impress us anymore, right? And I think that's actually really useful in like advice, no matter if you're in front of the real person or if you're acting or if you're just living a normal life. You'd stop trying to impress people. It's not about impressing others. It's about being authentic in the work and trusting your ability, trusting who you are as a person and letting that flourish. And so he was just like, I just want you to enjoy it more, not necessarily the moment in the scene, because you're not always in you're not always in a scene where you're supposed to be enjoying yourself, but you as the actor, you as the person, enjoy the experience more. And I think he said that because a lot of the time when he was really at the absolute pinnacle of his fame, he didn't enjoy it. And so, he's passing that advice on, just try to embrace the moment a little bit more. And that's what I tried to do. And I did, and it turned out to be, one of the best experiences of my life.
To be honest, I've always been a little less evolved. I don't wanna rock, so let's take it from the top.
I knew when I was auditioning that it was going to be a monkey. Michael was very honest with that, because some people wouldn't want to do that, right? Some actors would go, okay, if it's not my face, I don't want to do it. But for me, I just thought, if it wasn't a monkey, I wouldn't be able to play this role, right? You'd have someone that looked more like Robbie, and you'd probably have someone more famous, right? But the fact that it was the monkey, it meant that essentially anyone could play him. And they were just looking for the right person, the right charisma, the right ability. And so I actually found that really flattering, that it wasn't down to what I looked like or anything. It was just down to my ability as an actor, and my ability to showcase Rob. But I was still surprised. Still when I found out for the first time, you're going, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then Michael explains why. And so the reason why he's a monkey, there's many versions, is, his music. Rob references himself as a cheeky monkey a lot of the time, right? Me and my monkey, all that sort of thing. Yeah. And when he was going through his struggles, he often felt that people just ignored them and went, don't really care. Go out on stage and perform, dance, monkey, dance type of thing, perform, monkey, perform. And so he felt like he was being used, and he felt like he was a bit of a caged beast at times. So yeah, that's kind of the main reason. Great thing about having it as a performance capture and as a monkey as well, it just allows you to go into a fantasy world with a lot of these songs. Straight away you're given a platform to go into another world, and that's what any good musical does. I think it transports you into a new place, just like any good song, any good moment. Words, when words are not enough, you sing. And that feels like the same thing with the film that we did. When real life isn't enough to convey this story, we'll go into something extraordinary.
I'll give it smoking, baby!
Do you have a favorite moment in this film, like that you like the most?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. In terms of shooting them, Regent Street definitely has to be up there. Rock DJ. It's one of the only moments in the film. And we kind of only realized this afterwards when we watched it back for the first time. It's one of the only moments in the film when Robbie performs and he's not got the demons, the versions of himself looking back at him with disgust. And you'd feel that it's pure joy in that one. And, and I was dancing with those 4 boys, the Take That boys, that have turned into my best mates. And so we just had the best time, dancing on an iconic street. In terms of watching the movie, I think Come Undone is just beautifully, beautifully done. And I think it's given that song a whole new life, a whole new narrative. And a lot of that, I was like driving in front of like a games console steering wheel. like with like nothing there, and we just did that, like reacting to stuff. Yet it's portrayed so beautifully.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's many. You know, she's the one.
Yeah. I had here like the Rock DJ moment because I want to ask you. I think that was one of the one that went viral before the movie was released here in Argentina. Tell me about like recording that. How hard it was to do all those movements for this number?
Yeah, it was, you know, so Ashley Warren was the choreographer for that, and he wanted to do something that felt iconic. And when we were rehearsing, when we were doing it, because we know what the shots were going to be, because Michael had kind of already planned it out with Ash as to where the camera was going to be, etc. And Ash just wanted to fill it with moves that weren't necessarily difficult in terms of the choreography. You know, there's no like triple pirouettes for us to do, or you know, it's just more about what choreography can we do that really just shows enjoyment and togetherness and young lads kind of misbehaving a little bit and then and gaining this fan base as they get to their like ultra stardom. The hard stuff was like the pogo sticks, like trying to jump on beat with a pogo stick and all be on the same beat and keeping the same space. That was the hard one. And like the mobility scooters with the grandmas on there, like they had to like tweak these mobility scooters so they could turn sharper and all that sort of thing. That was the really like nitty gritty bit. But another thing with that sequence, Ash and Michael said to me, you kind of don't need to worry about dancing like Rob in this one. You can just dance as yourself, just dance like you're having the best time and no one's watching. So that's what I did. And it was that sort of dancing that I did as a kid. Like I used to do street dancing, like every Monday I'd go and do my street dancing class just for fun. And it felt like that. It was great.
Yeah, well, I thought that there was a lot more CGI involved in that, but if you had to like practice and learn to mimic every one of those pogo sticks, and of course these grandma cards, that's super hard.
Literally, Ash sent us all a pogo stick to our houses because we had a little break between the main shoot and Regent Street. So we'd be sending each other videos all the time of us trying to like get these pogo sticks down. Yeah, it was great.
So, the story starts.
I'm loving angels instead.
I think with Better Man, number one, it's very brutal and honest. You know, nothing is... You know, Rob is almost the villain of the story a lot of the time. You know, he shows his really dark side. And I think sometimes in these other musical biopics, you don't quite see that. You see a slightly kinder version of the person whose story it is about. Whereas Rob, credit to him, was very much like, no, this story needs to be blemishes and all. You know, it really needs to show my true self. So I think people respect that when they watch it. They go, oh, and I think they're surprised by that. I think they're surprised at the honesty. I think secondly, there's so many relationships in that film that people can connect to. You know, I think of Nan, especially. I think of people who have their relationship with their parents have broken down. And so they look at the relationship between Rob and his dad. And obviously the payoff there is, I think, a sort of payoff that a lot of people would love to have with their parents that have, you know, they've separated from. Heartache as well. You know, sometimes it feels like, you know, partners that don't quite work out, like star-crossed lovers in a way. And so, yeah, I think the human element of the film, which feels strange to say when he's portrayed as a chimpanzee, but I think the human element of the film is just so strong and really at the core of the movie that really makes it special.